Jackie Kennedy, when she served as First Lady, she was noted for being always in style and well dressed. And in many ways, it's just an example of doing it best. If you look at historical photos of the time, you'll see that most ladies were dressed in a very similar manner, optimizing the American style at the time. But Jackie, for whatever reason, just did it a little bit better than everyone else. And I guess that's what we're trying to do here in our time and place is not to out slime each other, but to hold on to the best of our humanity and just do it a little bit better. Welcome to Conservative Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. At Conservative Coffee Hour, we sometimes ask, well, what is it we're trying to conserve? And I think we're trying to hold on to social cohesion and preserve the fabric of our culture and society. I think if you look at history, it shows that most cultures and governments and people move slowly toward the left, and then eventually it all falls apart. So I think we're trying to preserve the best of everything we have going for as long as possible. Some of my more sophisticated friends kind of explained to me the sentiment that, this is just what governments do. They fight and squabble, and they probably do a lot of mischievous things behind our backs, and there's a lot of corruption and graft, but that's just the way it is. And we just go along with it until it all blows up. And I can appreciate that, but I guess I'm just not all that sophisticated because I don't fully embrace that. When I worked on the presidential campaign 2016, when Hillary Clinton was running against then candidate Donald Trump, I went home that night after the election, pretty certain because we were told over and over again that Hillary was most certainly going to win because she was running against the worst person to ever have existed in human history. So I sat there in my living room having a sandwich, and I was kind of contemplating on, what life was going to be like with Hillary. And I was grateful in that moment for the idea that I'm later in my life. I'm not married. I don't have a family. I don't have any children. So there'll be no one left in my immediate circle to endure what will follow. And I thought, at best, I have 20 years, and probably, we have at least 20 years with President Hillary Clinton before it gets completely unbearable. But I was happy to know that I would be exiting before I'd ever have to see the outcomes of the Hillary Clinton presidency. And for me, and I think for many people, President Trump was a turning point in that narrative because we saw it as one last chance to hold on to the glimmer and the few threads of recognizable societal culture that we still have. And I think we can see that there have been many good and remarkable outcomes. We've seen power returning back to the states. We've seen a realignment of the Supreme Court and a calling out and a focus on the phenomenon, the very real phenomenon of the deep state, which is something just until recently was a conspiracy theory. Lately, we've been following the narrative of choosing the new Speaker of the House of Representatives, which is itself remarkable. We've said goodbye to Nancy Pelosi, which was another blessing in our time. But I was intrigued by the idea that 20 people were going to set the agenda with the new Speaker and the new Congress. And I think we all agree with the agenda. So we're happy, but is that really a good thing? I think we can look at Nancy Pelosi, and she seemed almost completely crazed most of the time. And if you think about her position as just holding together a ragtag coalition of small groups of people just to hold power, you could see how, yeah, that would take a toll on you. You would be crazed. She wasn't necessarily there to do the will of the people, which we certainly can see. She was there just to hold on to power, which meant appeasing and delivering certain things to a small group of people. So I guess we can wish Mr. Kevin McCarthy, all the best, but he has to realize that the nation is unevenly yoked, and serving a small group of people probably will not serve everyone best long term. There are many different needs and issues all across the nation, individually and collectively. in my line of work, working with retail stores and hotels and businesses, I often reflect on the model of Macy's. Federated Department Store for many years had this dream, this business model of creating a national chain so everything could be centralized for cost efficiencies. And they did that by buying up many, many fine regional department stores all across the nation and literally erasing social and cultural history from almost every community in the United States to create Macy's as a national department store chain. And as soon as they did that, they found out that it didn't quite work because it turned out that people on Montana weren't so crazy about receiving shipments of swimsuits in the middle of winter, and people in Miami really didn't have a need for parkas. It's not equal. We don't live in an equal world. We don't live in an equal nation. On paper, none of this really works, and that's why we have a republic. We don't need to be everything to everyone. And we don't need to be perfect. Brene Brown has said that being imperfect does not mean inadequate. Being defined by our imperfections is also something that none of us want to be labeled as or confined by. That's why we need dynamic, visionary leadership in the good times and in the bad times. One aspect of the new Congress, which also has intrigued me, is the convention of these House committees to look into things and have investigations. And again, I don't think we want to out House committee the opposing party with our equally weaponized House committees. And I think this is an example where we definitely don't want to do that better. And if we look at the previous administration, the liberal agenda of the Democrat-dominated House, we can think, well, what was up with their House committees in all their endless investigations and witch hunts? Where was the House Committee for Homelessness? And where was the House Committee for Poverty? And where was the House Committee for the spiritual crisis facing the nation? Where were all those things, which I think would be true to the liberal heart and everyone's heart, but where was the focus on those? We never heard anything about that. And why is that? What does that tell us? What were they trying to distract us from and cover up? And now we have the election fraud or election interference narrative taking a very interesting jog. We've moved on from the cyber warfare and all the discrepancies and irregularities of the mail-in voting, which are all truly problematic and need to be looked at. But now it's really moved to the intelligence agencies, the FBI, CIA, and the Pentagon, and the government itself, which apparently seems to have been weaponized to influence the election outcomes, which is a very interesting term because it puts the focus on the deep state itself. The topic of election interference and election fraud and election integrity is now focused on taking out the deep state. And that's a very significant turn in the narrative and something we should all watch and be mindful of and probably encourage as much as we can, because it's the government itself which has been weaponized against us, the people. They say there are more ways to skin a cat. And Jackie Kennedy, to the best of my knowledge, did not wear a lot of animal print, but if she had, she probably would have done it best. And if we're trying to skin a cat, well, it might not be exactly how we think it should be, and the outcome might not be exactly how we think it should be, but it might be a way of doing it better. If that's something we can all be grateful for, I think that has everything to do with President Trump. In many ways, President Trump did it better. And what did President Trump do better? Well, President Trump was better at being President Trump than almost everybody else. If you would like to join us at Conservative Coffee Hour is every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central Time on Zoom. I will be happy to send you an invitation. I'll include my email in the description of this video so I can do so. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.